getting ready to install the head onto the block. And right now what I'm doing is I'm going through and chasing all the threads for the head bolts. Make sure they're all nice and clean and free of gunk. So most of these, besides I think like 2 bolts, are going into the water jacket. So you're going to want to put some high temperature thread sealant on the threads. The ones that do not go into the water jacket, the ones that are blind holes, which means they bottom out, do not put any oil or sealant on them because they will crack the block. Alright, now I've got these set up for tightening. I got the torque sequence written on the head so I don't have to keep going back to the book. And what you're going to want to do is tighten these down in 3 sets. 20, then 40, then the final torque of 65 to 70 foot-pounds. Alright, here I'm just going to walk you through the final torque. I'm going to show you torquing it 3 times. And now you can see how fast I'm able to move with writing the numbers on the top of the caps. I don't have to keep looking back and forth to the manual. I can just get right at it. I do see some suggestions after running the tractor to warm it up, let it cool, and then torque it again. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but just a suggestion that I've heard. That you might want to think about. And that is that. So here we got our distributor that I just finished putting back together. I didn't film it because things weren't working out that great. I had to modify some stuff. I had to sand this part of the on the rotator right there, and condenser. I had to drill out that hole, reposition it, but I got it all put together. So to do it, you're just gonna untake that screw, take that screw out, pull that bail out, unscrew your condenser holder right there, and then you can pull this out, take that screw out, then you'll be able to pull your one half of your points off, the other half of your points off, and just put it back in reverse. Now to set your points, you're going to want to loosely screw those in after you have everything reinstalled. Make sure that this is opening. You're at your highest point. There's lobes on here, right there. You can see there's one right there, then a flat spot, then another lobe, then another lobe. So you're going to want to be at the top part of the lobe to set that, so it's open, and then you'll stick in. I set mine to 15 thousandths because as the points wear, they're gonna open up a little bit more. So I think the spec is 15 thousandths to 25 thousandths or something like that. So I set it to 15 thousandths. So you'll have these loosely set. That'll be open. Stick your feeler in there, and then you could rotate this eccentric to move this out and set your gap. Then once you have it at a spot where you want it, tighten them down, and you'll be good to go. Alright, so I just went ahead and installed my governor here. Now, unfortunately, there's no real way of bench testing this unless it's in a running tractor. So, as you can see, I used RTV as a gasket on this because the body of it was kind of warped. And with the gasket that came with the rebuild kit, it didn't really fit very well. It wasn't making a seal. So I just said hell with it and used some RTV. Now, I kept the RTV towards the edge. That's why it looks all spooged out like that. I went with like an 1/8 inch bead, 1/8 inch 3/16 thick bead around the outside perimeter, so I was sure I wasn't going to get any splooge down the inside. So right now I've got it sitting there finger tight waiting to set up because it's the ultra black, so I got to let it sit for an hour and then I could torque it down. I also have the alternator installed with the supplied bracket because I'm going to a 12 volt conversion. The spark plugs are installed. I've got my battery cable hooked up, ground strap hooked up, starter installed, and I just have to either fabricate or buy a used battery tray because mine is completely rotten out. Probably going to make one, but if I can find a cheap enough one, I may just buy it. I got the carburetor installed. Now this is just an Amazon special carburetor that I got for 32 bucks. I figure for the price of a rebuild kit, it's worth it, or it's worth a shot at least. Especially since my original Marvel Shebler, the jets were essentially fused solid in there and plugged up. So yeah, they weren't going to be coming out. So I figured instead of wasting hours trying to fix that, give this a shot. If it doesn't work out, it's easy to replace, and then I guess I'll have to figure out the other one. I've got my spark plug wires routed in. They're not fully connected. I just routed them just to see which way would work, and it looks like this will work after I zip tie everything tight to the distributor bail and the alternator bracket. I'll keep everything out of the way of the belts, the fans, and I'll zip tie this stuff up here. Now what you are going to want to do, especially if you keep your tractor outside, is stick some dielectric compound on the tip of the spark plug, and you're going to want to stick some going into the distributor cap. And this is what I'm using. This is some Motorcraft stuff. You could use it for brakes and ignition wires. And I really like this stuff. It works really well to keep the moisture out. Got the new radiator installed, new hoses, new fan shroud, and to mount the radiator, all it is just two 7/16 carriage bolts right there and there. You stick them into the bottom of the radiator, then into the slots, and then you could tighten those down. Also, I got new rubber mount pads for that as well. So for the hardware, I just used like 1/2 inch sheet metal screws into the side because that's basically what the original hardware was. And I made sure that it definitely wasn't going to be hitting into the radiator cores, which they are not. Also, new radiator cap. Going to have to take that off when you mount the hood. But yeah, this is looking like something now. Got my oil filter housing and all the oil lines routed in now. Just as an extra precaution against leaks, I did use some high temp thread sealant in all of junction blocks, because I did reuse them and I did not know the health of the flares. Some of them looked a little crushed, so this is just some extra insurance to make sure they don't leak. Also, mufflers on. That's pretty good right there. One less thing on the shelf. If you see that leak right there, it's actually from my steering box. I filled that up with 90 weight oil, and sector shaft is leaking. And the best part about that, since this is an early 8N, I would have to pull the entire steering box apart to do that. So instead of doing that, I'm going to drill and tap that 1/2 inch fill plug for a grease fitting and fill it up with corn head grease after I drain out all of the oil that I put in. That way I can overfill it to lubricate the top carrier bearing, which doesn't really see any oil and is prone to fail on these. And I don't have to worry about leaking past the seals. So that'll be nice, especially because this box is actually in good shape. No real slop in it besides, well, yeah, I mean, there's no real slop in it besides up there. That's just normal uptake of the steering wheel. But yeah, it would suck having to pull that apart.